Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities. We're going to work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and the commodities and ETFs that I follow. There is one thing I want to touch on before I jump into it. Housing starts did increase this past month. They went up to 1.45 million, up from 1.31 million, about a 10% increase in housing starts, which is good because that's where a lot of the inflation is being driven from. It's credit being put against new assets or new homes, and it is a credit expansion, which is inflationary. So Powell is going to have to increase interest rates and hold that thing down in order to control the inflation from that sector. So that is one thing that is a good thing because that's part of the thesis, and that's one of the things that we look and monitor. Again, if you're interested in learning about investing, join our community at finding-value.com. We've got a platinum question and answer session at 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on Saturday. Love to have you there. Love to have you part of the community. And you can have a discount if you put discount in the coupon code. The commodity bull market is still strong, and I'll show you information, at least in the short term here, where I think things are going, give you my financial opinion, and I'll let you know what's going on here. So let's dive in and take a look. So we've got the dollar here, short-term wise. Dollar, I think, is still going to continue higher. I'm basing that off these big green candlesticks that are showing on, and this is the scare there. So I do think this is going to continue higher for the short term. And what that means is I think interest rates are going to continue up at a fast pace, I think. We're getting positive data out of housing starts, and I'm starting to see the 10-year and 30-year yields looking like they're going to continue higher. So that's going to keep pressure. That inflationary pressure from housing starts is going to keep pressure on Powell to keep interest rates high. And it's going to pressure money into commodities versus bonds. And I'll show you what that looks like. But I do think eventually the dollar is going to go lower over time. But in the short term, we're going to go higher. So I'm bullish short term, bearish long term on the dollar. The 10-year yield up 2.72%. Basically, we've broken out of this pattern here, and we've got a bullish formation setting up where I think yields are going to go higher. So the 10-year yield up massively today, 2.72%, and I think they're going to continue higher. They're also backtesting this gigantic breakout here. So they're backtesting this, and I think we're going to break on higher with yields to the upside on a long-term perspective. Looking at 30-year yields, they are also doing the same thing. They did a breakout and then a retest, and then we're putting in a bullish engulfing to move higher. So I do think yields are going to move on higher. I think the curve is going to invert more, which means the 10-year yield is going to outpace the 30-year yield. And that's going to be good for platinum and crude oil and some of these other commodities. Gold doesn't necessarily like that type of setup. It doesn't like an inverting yield curve. It likes when the curve uninverts and people are afraid. Bond prices also do not like higher interest rates, and I do think this looks good for a move lower in bond prices. So yields higher, bond prices lower is what the charts are telling me, and I think that's very good for commodities in general. The TYX-TNX ratio, this is telling us that the curve is inverting more, and it could potentially head lower. That was going to be good for a lot of the energy stocks, and I think that the energy stocks and the housing market information is going to drive inflation back into the system if it remains elevated or continues to move up. So that's what we're seeing there with yields. The CRB index is higher today, up 1.3%. We have a breakout of this trend line here. We're kind of doing a retest on it, and we've broken this support level through here to the downside, and it could be a slingshot to the upside. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just stating maybe it could be. Maybe we do have more downside onto this. We have to see how this bounce moves. Do we roll back over, or do we actually come up and start to work our way on higher? That is yet to be determined. We'll have to see how that works out. The CRB to S&P 500 is lower. The S&P 500 was up quite a bit today. It did outpace the commodity index. And when we take a big picture view of this, just kind of backing out, we are still moving up in a commodity bull market. Wave one is this first move in the ratio. We've got wave two pullback, and I think we're going to get a big old move where commodities outperform in the future. We just haven't bottomed and moved and turned yet. but we're very close to that turn. We have broken out of the downtrend line. We are doing a retest, and we'll see if that retest holds. Gold, flat today, doesn't like the yield curve inverting, does like a weaker dollar, but we're right at that resistance line, and that resistance line is this line going across here where we could reverse lower. It's a possibility. But we'll see if we break or if we reverse. I don't know in the short term what it's going to do, but we can watch it on this channel here. Silver also down a little bit. It is consolidating sideways. What I call this is a continuation pattern where it could break to the upside. So that's good for gold even, because silver can also give us more information. We've got big buying pressure with the small candlesticks. I think it does depend on how much fear is in the market. And if there's a lot of fear in the market, it's going to continue on up. Platinum trades a little bit different than the others. It's up about $10 today. And the inverted yield curve doesn't really bother platinum as much. And I think this is the one that will outperform in the short term to even medium term. So this is in a megaphone pattern. It's at the bottom of the megaphone pattern. I do think it's going to work its way higher and probably break this accumulation pattern right now, break it and move on up. Well, I don't know if it's going to break it immediately, but hopefully it doesn't break it immediately. Hopefully we get one last scare, we get down here, and then we go. Because I'd love to buy a whole bunch more. But this looks fantastic from a long-term perspective for platinum. XEU to gold ratio still heading a little bit lower in the short term. We are getting a little bit of a reversal candlestick, hammer candlestick there. But we still need to break this big downtrend line. Once we break that, I'm going to be uber bullish. You'll be hearing me be one of the biggest bulls on gold and silver uranium, or gold and silver mining companies. But we're not there yet. GDX slightly lower today, still looks all right, getting that little hammer candlestick. We'll see if we can break above that resistance trend line. SILJ also down a little bit, little hammer candlestick above support there, kind of just hanging out. I don't really see a clear direction there. It's fighting back and forth. Crude oil up about 1%. Is this going to turn here? I'm inclined to think that it will. If you zoom in on the very short term, what this is a double bottom pattern. And we are basically at the buy point of where most of these consider to be buy points. You can even take this pattern here and compare it to long-term chart patterns on energy service companies and stuff like that. But this is a 5-minute chart pattern, the double bottom. I think we're probably going to break to the upside and start running. So I will say this, guys. I think that whenever this does bottom here, that this will be the cheapest price that we will see for a very long time. That's going to be my opinion on oil in the 60s here. And I don't think we're ever going to get back to this price again. The second half of 2023 is going to get very tight. I think prices are going to go up. If the credit continues to expand from the real estate market, that's going to be more pressure for oil to go up. Oil is very inflation sensitive along with platinum. And those are two areas that I would definitely be looking at for potential investments. Natural gas is also looking quite good, 3.28%. If we dive into the dailies here and kind of look at it from a short-term perspective, we've got what I consider to be the green army showing up. It's large green candlesticks, smaller red candlesticks, and I think this will eventually work its way on up. It's going to grind on higher, and I think this is a good entry point for natural gas as well. XOP, yeah, you know me, putting in a bullish engulfing. That's where the closing price and the opening price engulfs the body of the candlestick before it. That is a reversal candlestick to move on higher. If we were to look at the short term on it, we also have a double bottom pattern. It broke out here, back tested, and we're going to move higher in the short term. So that looks good for a move higher in the exploration production companies. If you guys want to know the companies that I am accumulating, and I've accumulated, and you guys that are listening that are members, I have accumulated. I put more money in today and yesterday in our favorite companies. I'll just say that to the members. And I do think this will head on higher. OIH is doing the same thing. It's called a bullish piercing pattern where it gaps down and then it closes above the 50th percentile mark. This is what we want to see for a candlestick reversal pattern. Looking at it from a short term, it's basically kind of a broken downtrend that we're starting to break on higher. If we were kind of come on out a little bit, you can also say that this kind of like a kind of inverted head and shoulders pattern that's developing here. So that's good. It looks very good for a potential run higher. we have to see how strong this bounce is. If we bounce, this doesn't mean that we'll break all the way up here and break and we go to, you know, cloud 9 up there. We need to see how strong this bounce is. We very well could roll back over, do another bounce, maybe even come down here eventually. Depends on the short-term buying pressure and the market conditions and the fear in the market. But I think we're going to see a bounce here in the short term. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, we still have a lot of downside momentum here. I don't see a reversal candlestick that's large enough to be convincing that this has turned yet, but it could happen at any time. URNM is also lots of selling pressure through here. You can see all those red candlesticks. They're basically flag patterns that are just continuating down. We do have a reversal candlestick, which is this guy here. If we look at the 5-day candlestick there, you can say that this kind of has an inverted head and shoulders there, where we could potentially move on up for uranium in the short term. But that does not mean that in the longer term, if you take a little bit bigger picture view, that this is just going to break on up. We could very well turn back lower and put in a lower bottom, a lower low, and get a slingshot out of this thing if it wants to. There's still a lot of downside momentum with this selling pressure there. So let's just watch it, see what happens over the next week or two, and see if we can either put a base in here or if we just rip it. But I do like it down here. I'll just say that. I do like this general area for the aggressive people. TAN, a little bit down today, but we're on support. I also like TAN right where it's at. I think eventually it's going to work its way and break on higher. A lot of people, what they do, if you're a newer investor, they get bored because it's been going sideways for so long, and then they lose interest in it, and then it breaks out without them. COPX also up today, up 1.13%. It is a bullish piercing pattern where we could potentially head higher. We'll have to see what the bounce looks like. And that would be a reason to subscribe to the channel and watch this thing with me. But it does look all right, and we'll see where we go. And that is correlating with this. Basically, the way that this thing falls is generally the way that this thing goes up. So another thing to look at there. Lithium, it is up today, 1.33%. I think this one's got a bullish engulfing pattern. There it is, bullish engulfing. That generally means we're going to work higher in the short term. We have to monitor how strong the bounce is going to be. So that's looking a lot better in the short term. REMX, which is rare earth metals, a little bullish piercing. I do think that will work its way higher, sideways to higher. And we're right kind of below the support level on REMX. S&P 500 looks fantastic to move higher. We had a little bit of the scare here, and now it's starting to bounce on back, and it looks like we could potentially go higher. Nice strong candlestick today, bouncing off support, looks good. NASDAQ also moving on higher, looking strong, finishing strong, right off that support level that I drew across. And we've broken the downtrend line here, and it does look like we could potentially head higher. So that looks fantastic for a move on up for the NASDAQ. Emerging markets, also putting in an update today, still looking a little bit better. We're above the low here, so that this could be a higher low. And then eventually when we break out of this guy here, actually, we were in a new uptrend here, and we pulled on back from all that scare. So I think emerging markets looks fantastic for a move on higher. We've broken this longer term downtrend line here, and I think it will eventually work its way on up. XHB, the home builders, obviously they're doing well today with that news. This is a bullish engulfing. I do think it's going to work its way on higher over time. We also have a shorter term bullish double bottom occurring, which is also consolidating right where you want to be purchasing. So home builders look fantastic here. Looking at MOO is also looking pretty good. It is putting in a bullish engulfing here to move on higher, bullish piercing engulfing. And I do think it's going to be bottoming and moving on up. Copper's also, well, it's a little bit down, but we're right on support. This kind of longer term support level right here, we're above all this support. I think we're going to get support there. We're going to move on higher with copper, especially with the housing starts going up. I think it's going to look a lot better. Lumber moving on higher. Now, they say that lumber is a leading indicator, but actually it's lagging because lumber went higher based off the housing starts information. So people are piling into lumber. They're reactive. The leading indicator is not lumber. The leading indicator is the demographic that is coming into home buying years. That's your leading indicator. That leading indicator, lumber is going to follow that higher generally, and so is the housing market. That is just giving us more information on the strength of the housing market. Iron ore, just moving sideways today. Not really much to update there. Bigger picture view. This is in a big accumulation pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you get your pullback. It's probably going to do this, and then it's going to rip it. So iron ore looking very good for a big move to the upside. Nickel also looking better today, up 1.55%. You can do this on the weeklies here. So getting a little bit of buying pressure today if it decides to show up. Oh, it's up 1.55. Aluminum down a little bit today on the dailies there, but I still think that this looks fantastic for a move on up. I've got some of my favorite companies in aluminum, and I also think that this is grinding up. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to come down. This is an inverted head and shoulders, and we'll eventually break out. This is a scare in the market to bring it back down. Good luck with them trying to hold this stuff down. I think eventually it's going to work its way higher with the deficits out in the back of 2023, early 2024. For aluminum, Baltic Dry Index continues to roll on higher. I think this looks fantastic. You can see the false breakout and the slingshot higher. We called that. That's good. And I think there's a lot of good opportunities in the Baltic Dry Index. Newcastle coal futures still lagging behind. And I do think this will be a very good opportunity once this bottoms and turns to move on higher. Ethereum, the liquidity index, so to speak, is what I call these. Ethereum is moving slightly higher today, but not really doing much. Looks like we're against some resistance there. We also have Bitcoin that is moving up a little bit, and we also have resistance up there as well. And we'll see if it breaks to the upside. But overall, guys, it's really good news that the housing market is heading higher. The housing starts. The volume of housing starts is what I look for. Not the price, not any of that other stuff, not new home sales, none of that stuff. The volume of the housing starts, and that's the new loans coming into the system. You could say sales. The sales could be another number there too. But that's good information. We'll see if the summer's strong or not. Spring and summertime coming up. If it's strong and we get a lot more new homes being built, I've been watching kind of, some other information, and a lot of people say that the market is really tight again. Multiple offers, people buying new homes, website traffic to new home builders has never been higher. Never been. This is all-time highs. So we'll see what happens. I think we have the commodity bull market still intact. Yeah, we went through a scary phase. Maybe there's still some scares ahead of us and more fear, but the data behind it, this market and the market conditions still looks really good. So I think there's a lot of buying opportunities out there. If you guys want to know what those buying opportunities are, check out finding-value.com, become a platinum member, join our community. Love to have you with us. And again, we've got a 7 a.m. Mountain Standard Time platinum question and answer session coming up on Saturday here. Love to have you there. Ask whatever questions you got. We'll talk about some opportunities that are out there. Maybe we'll talk about bank stocks even. And we'll take a look at all that stuff, and I'll give you my opinions around it. But that's all I've got for today. Give me a thumb up, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.